We are way overdue for a UVA basketball podcast. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. Sometimes I think I got to find somebody to help me produce these things because not only do I record them, produce the content that leads to the recording and then record them, but then I have to, then I actually have to produce them in terms of, the rigmarole. Um, that's another problem for another day. We're going to cover a lot in this one, and also for uh, making it easy if you want to pick and choose what you want to get out. If you're listening to the podcast, you're getting everything. If you, we can, we're also going to do. I'm also going to put together some individual videos out of this so that you can kind of pick and choose the parts you want to get into. We're going to cover though the coach search, the latest there. So much is developing on that. But I'm going to start with where we are, the current season. And there's two parts to this, the story of UVA basketball right now. There's the ongoing basketball season, and then there's the coach search. I am not recording. You can tell I got the regular background. I'm not recording from Charlotte. I did not. I decided not to make the trip this year because I think the bigger story of UVA basketball is the coach search, and I don't need to, drive 5 hours to Charlotte and put up money for a really good hotel in uptown Charlotte to be there for a day or two, and get the story of UVA basketball. I'm not cheap. It's also going to be 75 degrees here in Virginia this week and kind of want to enjoy enjoy the weather here in Virginia. We had a long, hard winter, felt like to me. Okay. So we're going to start with preparing, though, getting you ready for UVA Georgia Tech. And we'll start with how a lot went right for UVA in the 75-61 win over Georgia Tech. And I'm still surprised. When I cover the ACC season, I focus on UVA because I mean, at Augusta Free Press, I'm a news writer, I'm the editor, bottle washer, whatever else. And so, I don't watch a lot of college basketball outside of the UVA sphere. I don't watch a lot of college football outside the UVA sphere. Um, because you got to prioritize. And but what I do keep up with the teams as UVA is getting ready to play them on the schedule, learn as much as I can about them going into that game. Then afterwards, I just don't honestly don't pay a lot of attention to them. So then when I look up and see that Georgia Tech had 10 wins in the conference this year and finished eighth, I'm shocked because the only time I saw them, they were getting pummeled by at the time not very good Virginia team. 75-61 was the final. Virginia controlled that one, got the lead in the double digits early in the second half and kept it there. Never really threatened in that one. Virginia shot 49.2%, was 11 of 27 from three, 34 points in the paint, 14 makes at the rim, controlled the boards, 25-6 advantage when Georgia Tech missed a shot. Virginia had 13 offensive boards. McKneely had 20, Dai Dai Ames 18, Andrew Rohde 11 points, 9 assists, Blake Buchanan 11 rebounds. I mean, this was about as good as Virginia played all year. I mean, the win at Wake and this one, in terms of just pure basketball, this may have been the best pure basketball effort we saw from Virginia this year. So, say all that. That's the only time these two teams played. And we start at 0-0 tomorrow, shortly after noon. ESPN has the game, and it's the 8-9 game. So it's the only game on Wednesday in the ACC tournament where the teams aren't fed in from Tuesday. There are three games today. I'm recording this at around 12:15, starting to record around 12:15. I think the first game's at 3 today. Um, my experience, and I'll just share, I am missing not being in Charlotte. Um, Admittedly, even and it was my decision. It wasn't a money decision or anything else, to say the least. This is one of my favorite times of the year. It's just, I got to go where the story is. I feel like, and it's not down there. But okay, ACC tournament. There's three games on Tuesday. The winners play in the second, third, and fourth games tomorrow. And so the teams who are seeded, what would that be? I guess the second game tomorrow would be the uh, five seed Carolina would get the 12-13 winner, and then the night games would have the 10-15 winner, and then the 11-14 winner. There are three teams sitting there waiting, and they're playing a team that played the day before, and you don't play a lot of games on back-to-back days in the regular season. So the legs are an issue for the teams that win today and then have to play tomorrow. The 8-9 game, they're both fresh. It's the only game tomorrow where you have two fresh teams. And in fact, it's, aside from today's games, the only other game in the tournament where you have, two teams that are on equal legs, so to speak. Um, it's also tomorrow is an exhausting day for the writers. Just giving you that insight. I mean, not everybody. When I cover ACC tournaments, I try to be there for every game. I mean, I don't try to be there. I'm there for every game. Um, because I grew up an ACC kid. Back when the tournament started on Friday. And when you were in elementary school, you snuck a transistor radio into school and tried to turn it down as low as you could so you could still hear it without the teacher hearing it. Unless you were lucky enough to have a teacher who was also an ACC basketball fan, which for me, fortunately, was the case in sixth and seventh grade. And they just roll one of those big TVs in on those trays. I say big TVs; they were probably 19-inch TVs, but they were on those huge trays. And then you have the game on, the 12 o'clock game and the 2 o'clock game on until school let out. All that was going on back in the days. The ACC tournament is just like it's something I grew up with, and it's something that's always special to me. And so I'm there every game. So the first day is 3 games, the second day is 4 games, the third day is 4 games now. It's just ridiculous. The conference has gotten so big. By the end of the 11th game on Thursday, I mean, I'm always just like just practically dead. And then Friday they don't have a game until night now, the way they do it. So at least you get to sleep in. And I would try to write a story about every game. I mean, I got my money's worth, or at least one story. I'd write a game story and a column about every game. Got my money's worth. But okay, so anyway, all that saying, I wish I was there outside. The weather in Charlotte's going to be nice this week too, and I wouldn't have even known it because I'd be inside all day. I'd get a run in the morning, but yeah, I'd be inside the rest of the day. All right, so um, before February 8th, getting back to UVA Georgia Tech, which is what I'm supposed to be talking about here. Before the February 8th game in Charlottesville, the one that Virginia won pretty handily, um, after I should say, after that game, Georgia Tech won 5 of their next 6. So on paper, had been playing really well. And then they got blown out at Wake Forest in the regular season finale on Saturday. Now, to be fair, Georgia Tech had won 5 of 6, but they hadn't really beaten anybody. This year's ACC is not strong top to bottom. It's not really strong even middle to bottom. There's a few teams at the top that are, I mean, obviously Duke and Clemson are in Louisville, obviously Louisville. I forget how quickly Louisville turned things around. Those three teams are really good teams, and then there's a big drop off. Wake is the 4 seed, and Wake's not going to make the NCAA tournament. Carolina might, as the 5 seed, make the NCAA tournament. Might is all we get. We might get 3 teams in this year. You get down to the druthers, and that's what Georgia Tech was beating up on. They were either beating up on teams playing today in the ACC tournament, or they had 2 wins in that 5 of 6 stretch over NC State and Miami, who aren't even in the tournament. The tournament's so big that everybody even gets in the tournament, which is stupid too. Um, so they had a bad loss to a team. Wake Forest had lost 3 of 4 going into last Saturday's game, where they just completely and utterly dominated Georgia Tech really from the get-go. Virginia also coming off a bad a 84-70 loss at Syracuse that won 13 games this year total, 7 in the ACC. Hadn't been playing well all season long, and then made them look like the second coming of Pearl Washington, Derek Coleman, and Carmelo Anthony out there Saturday night. I'll still call it the Carrier Dome. I don't care what they call it up there. So 2 teams coming in who had been playing relatively well, played awful. One of these teams has to win. The team that has to win has to play Duke on Thursday. Um, they get fed to the top seed. I wrote in my column, and I shouldn't be so negative. It's a chance. I mean, they play the games for a reason. You don't just run computer simulations. You play the game and see what happens. And one of these two will get the chance to advance and shock the world. maybe. I mean, that's they get to be a team for one more day. They stave off the exit interviews. They, delay the transfer portal season for them for another day. That's what it is. For Ron Sanchez, it also is, a chance to extend his coaching tenure for one more day. His tenure as the head coach will come to an end whenever Virginia loses. He's not on the short list of candidates. We'll talk about that later. You can say Sanchez was dealt a bad hand, and he was dealt that bad hand, but that doesn't change the situation with the coaching search. He's not on the list to be the next head coach. Things just aren't working out for him, unfortunately. But that's for tomorrow or another day. Hopefully, push it down the road, right? In the here and now, he's the coach, and he and his staff have to come up with a game plan to try to beat Georgia Tech. He was asked about this. Actually, one of our colleagues, Jerry Ratcliffe, on the UVA Zoom call on Monday, asked, "All right, so you got game tape. They got game tape on you from the February 8th game. What happens now? You got adjustments to make." And what Sanchez said is there aren't a lot of surprises. And, I'm kind of paraphrasing here now. I got the quotes in the story that I wrote on this. But, from Damon Stoudemire's standpoint at Georgia Tech, from Ron Sanchez's standpoint at Virginia, at this stage of a season, I mean, we're in March now. You started practice in October. You've been playing since early November. You don't make drastic changes. You don't change your offensive philosophy or defensive philosophy. Maybe you run a new play. Maybe throw a junk defense in just out of a timeout. Talk about that in a minute. But by and large, you don't change what you do. You just try to do what you do better, and be more effective and efficient at it. And so, yeah, there's not X's and O's tweaks here as far as that goes. Now, from Virginia's standpoint, Sanchez has injected something a little different, not a little different, actually radically different. The pack line defense hasn't been working for this group this year. I wrote a column actually last week. I wrote after the Clemson game in my one of my notes columns about how a certain UVA basketball legend had recommended to us post game after the Clemson loss. Hey, why not try some zone? In that game, Clemson was running the pick and roll and killing the bigs, killing UVA's bigs on the pick and roll. Well, one thing you're not going to do against the zone is kill you with a pick and roll. Why not try that when you're getting beat like a drum on the inside? And I asked Sanchez about that last Monday, and he said, we're good with what we got in terms of our defensive approach." And then on Tuesday, he did try a 2-3 zone for one possession coming out of timeout. Didn't work, led to an open three-pointer for Florida State, but he tried something different. Then on Saturday night at Syracuse was also killing Virginia in the post. I mean, awfully. I mean, that in the first half. When before we tried this new junk defense in the second half, the 1-3-1 zone, Syracuse was just scoring at will on the post. So he rolls out the 1-3-1 zone, and actually it worked. Syracuse got a couple of jump shots out of it, but also I think it was three turnovers at least on forced passes into the post that just didn't work out. And so, it's something. Sanchez said yesterday, he was asked about this by Greg Medea, my seatmate, when we flew out to the World Series last year in Omaha. Um, and so Greg asked the question, and Ron tried to say, he said we had it in our back pocket for a bit and pulled it out here and there. Yeah, no, fact check. They hadn't used the 1-3-1 zone this year. They tried a 2-3 zone a couple of times against Virginia Tech, and they used it for one possession against Florida State, but no 1-3-1s. Um, and it looked, like I said, it looked good, and he thought it looked good too. So, it's not like he's going to use it for the whole game, if he would use it against Georgia Tech. But it is something that Damon Stoudemire and his staff are going to have to spend some time on now, because now you've got UVA on tape using a 2-3 zone. The 2-3 wasn't in either the Virginia Tech or the Florida State games. The 2-3 zone was it looked like what you get your kids to do in a YMCA league. They didn't play it very well. The 1-3-1 though, I thought they played that pretty well. They extended it out, uh, and really it did take Syracuse out of its offensive flow there for a while. So we'll see. I mean, if nothing else, again, Stoudemire has to, um, you know, spend a little bit of time preparing zone beaters for those two. and he has to be thinking every time they go to a media timeout that Sanchez might come back out with that, and so make them waste some of their time doing something that we may not use. All right, the forecast for this one is interesting. I for my pregame analyses. I use Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, Evan Maya, Haslam Metrics, and ESPN BPI to help give everybody a feel for what the computers say about a game. This one, the five have, let's see, three have Virginia winning by a point. Ken Palm has Georgia Tech winning by a point. ESPN's BPI has Georgia Tech a 0.2 point favorite. So, and the score range is remarkably consistent. I guess algorithms have to, they'll bunch things up here. There's no outlier here. ESPN's BPI does not give a predicted score. It just gives you the margin. The other four have this game. Let's see, Bart Torvik and Haslam Metrics has Virginia winning 67-66. Ken Palm has Georgia Tech winning 68-67, and Evan Maya has Virginia winning 66-65. That's pretty consistent as far as the computers are weighing in on this. So, okay, so next up, we're going to get into that coaching search news, and there's a lot to uncover, unwrap as far as that goes. So after this break, we're gonna dive in.